There was no escaping my fixation on that beautiful landlady. It wasn't just because she was beautiful that I was drawn to her. There was a reason why I was intrigued by her. I encountered with her by chance, and it led to a story neither of us would have ever expected. My name is Tom Miller, a 60-year-old man. I used to work as a chief carpenter but retired last month. I've only ever worked as a carpenter, completely devoted to my craft. My wife, Alice, who stood by me through it all, passed away 15 years ago. When Alice's disease was found, it had already been quite progressed. Alice chose to forgo aggressive treatment, preferring to live out her remaining days in peace. Shall we spend our family time without all the hustle? I was the one who objected to Alice's decision. I thought it was unfair for her to suffer from illness and leave me behind, especially after she had borne the brunt of my work-focused life. And our daughter, Emily, was only 15 at that time. Emily and I often found it difficult to communicate, but she and Alice were very close. The thought of her leaving our daughter behind like that, just imagining what Alice must have been feeling about it, was too much to bear. I tried my utmost to find a hospital that could cure Alice's disease. I even searched for hospitals outside our county when local options fell short. I worked harder than ever to cover the medical expenses and spent my days off searching for hospitals. I was single-mindedly determined to save Alice. But Alice quietly told me, "You don't have to do all this. Let's just have a nice meal together and maybe go somewhere on our days off. That's what I want. That makes me happy. Just spending more time together like this is enough for me." I was left speechless. After that, for the first time in my life, I took a long vacation. It was to extend my time with Alice, if even by a little. I was lucky to have understanding colleagues who helped adjust my work schedule during the week, so I could go back home earlier. I felt Alice smiled more often after I stopped looking for a hospital. Emily asked Alice to teach her how to cook. Because Dad's cooking doesn't look that appetizing, I should learn how to cook from you, right? I realized from her demeanor that she was preparing herself in her own way for the mother's departure. I vividly remember how Alice looked happy for how our daughter was doing her best to get ready for this big transition. Alice lived out her remaining days peacefully, and she took her journey to the skies. I'm grateful that Alice told me, "Please stop looking for hospitals." Halting the search for hospitals allowed me to cherish the time with Alice and our daughter. Thanks to the final moments Alice gave us, both my daughter and I were able to see Alice off with peaceful hearts. Then, I threw myself into work. I think our daughter understood that I was filling the void of Alice's absence with work. She willingly took over the household chores. And finally, I reached retirement. When I had nothing else to do, I didn't know how to spend my day. One day, our daughter Emily suggested a trip as a celebration for the hard work until retirement. Even though I wasn't sure if she'd enjoy going on a trip just with me, Emily seemed enjoying planning the trip. Emily is turning 30 this year. I think she's becoming more and more like Alice when she was young. She has graduated from college and got a job, and she also told me that she even got a new boyfriend. While I was happy that she no longer needed her parents' help, I also felt a sense of loneliness. I wish I could share these feelings with Alice, but I'm sure she's watching over us from above. Feeling reluctant to have Emily spend money on my trip, I told her that I preferred a nearby destination. "Just leave it to me. There's a nice inn in the mountains of the neighboring town. Look forward to it." Emily brought me to a secluded, shabby hot springs inn in the mountains. But calling it shabby might be misleading. It was a charming inn with an old-fashioned atmosphere. Even though I had heard of this inn, it was my first time visiting there because I was always working. We visited on a weekday, so there weren't many guests there. It seemed like we could relax well. When we arrived at the inn, we were greeted by the landlady. She was elegant, and the dress she was wearing suited her perfectly. "Welcome, I'm glad you could make it." And this landlady, her face, or rather her atmosphere, was somewhat similar to Alice's, and it startled me. I looked at Emily in panic, and it seemed like she was frozen as well. I thought she might be thinking the same thing. Seeing us in shock, the landlady tilted her head in confusion. "Is everything okay?" At her words, Emily seemed to snap back to reality. "And no, nothing. Your inn is lovely, isn't it, Dad?" "Oh, yay." After that, we had a relaxing stay at this hot spring inn. It was well kept, and the food was delicious. The service of the employees was great, and the space was very comfortable. However, it seems that the weather is going to deteriorate tonight, and it will rain heavily. The rain is already starting to fall. The outdoor hot tub here isn't roofed, so it was closed for the day. I was looking forward to soaking in the outdoor hot tub, but it was off the table this time. Still, the indoor tub was amazing, so let's count it as a win. After we finished our meals and baths, we were lounging in our room when we heard some commotion. Emily and I got curious, so we decided to follow the noise. Apparently, there was a leak in a room they were using as a storage. The landlady noticed us and came our way looking apologetic. "I'm sorry for the disturbance." "What happened?" She pointed to a corner of the ceiling in the room. "It was damp from the rain." "There's a leak. We've done regular inspections as this is an old building, but rest assured, your rooms are fine. Please, go back and get some rest in your room." Despite her assurances, I found myself looking up at the ceiling, concerned. That's when Emily turned to me and said, "Dad, why don't you offer to help?" "Huh?" I replied, surprised. I was just about to offer my assistance. Talk about good timing. The landlady tried to stop us, but Emily replied with a chuckle. "My dad used to be a carpenter. He's good at fixing these sorts of things, and he seems pretty worried about it." That's my girl. She knows her father well. With this happening, there's no way I could go back to our room to rest. Like my daughter says, I'm good at this kind of thing, and after seeing this, I can't help but worry. "May I help you?" After a few protests, the lady reluctantly agreed to let us help. According to her, the male staff, who would usually handle physically demanding work, had already gone home, leaving only the cooks and the housekeepers. She seemed apologetic, but for me, it felt almost satisfying to be able to be of use. Maybe I'm more suited to being active than to living a leisurely retirement life. The landlady and I spent until midnight repairing the ceiling. Without a man's hand, it becomes troublesome at times like these. My husband used to handle these kind of things, but he passed away 10 years ago. Since then, we've been depending on professionals and other male staff for physical tasks. We both have our share of loneliness, don't we? I found myself murmuring, thinking of my late wife, Alice, upon hearing about her late husband. I lost my wife too, you know. It was 15 years ago, but there are still some nights when her absence hit me hard, especially since our daughter moved out. I feel the same way. My son's married, and he's been working at this inn for a long time. In fact, he and his wife are about to take over the management. It is relieving, but at the same time, it's lonely. I've been burying my loneliness in work since my husband's passing. Now, I wonder what I'll do alone. My kids have moved out too, and while I'm proud of them, there's a part of me that feels like my role has ended. If my husband was still here, we could have rejoiced at our children's growth together. The more we talked, the more I realized how similar our situations were. Both of us had lost our spouses and immersed ourselves in work. But as we aged, our children left home and we retired. Now, imagining our future alone filled us with loneliness and anxiety. But there was no one to share these feelings with. And we didn't want to worry our children. We talked about our spouses, our children, and many other things while waiting for the repairs to be completed. Each time the landlady showed her smiling face or looked lonely, I was reminded of my late Alice. If you looked closely, they didn't look alike actually. but there was something similar in their gentle aura, their choice of words, their timing of laughter. Seeing me lost in thought, the landlady said, "If I were to fall in love again, I'd want someone like you, Mr. Miller." I was taken aback and quickly responded, "Me? This old, worn-out guy like me? You're beautiful, and you could find someone much better." No, I'm getting on in years too. I'd like someone who can understand my loneliness." I agreed with her words. After that she asked me, "Will you spend another night at this inn if possible?" She seemed to think I should at least rest after helping her out so much. "Please, can you stay one more night?" When the beautiful landlady, who reminded me of Alice, pleaded with me like that, I ended up agreeing. Emily was also delighted by the landlady's offer, and we decided to stay another night. The next day was sunny, as if the heavy rain from the day before had never happened. I enjoyed sightseeing with my daughter, and we thoroughly enjoyed the inn's hot spring and food. But even then, I would occasionally find myself reflecting. The innkeeper, talking about if I were to fall in love again, I'd like someone like Mr. Miller. That night, as it was our last day of the trip, Emily and I had some drinks. I drank with her thinking how happy it is to do that with a daughter, but it seemed like we had too many of it. Just as we were getting pretty drunk, Emily murmured, "The landlady, she reminds me of Mom, doesn't she?" It seemed that Emily was getting sleepy from the alcohol, and she rubbed her eyes. "You can go to bed first." Maybe I will, but Dad, are you okay going back like this? Aren't you concerned about the landlady? I had told Emily about my conversation with the landlady the day before. "You two seem to be in similar situations. It's a coincidence that you met, but finding someone who can share your loneliness and feelings, that's rare, isn't it?" Emily fell asleep as soon as she said such a thing. I crawled into bed thinking about what Emily had said, but I couldn't fall asleep easily. When I woke up the next day, Emily was gone. I thought she might have gone to the bathroom, but when I saw that her luggage was gone, I panicked and opened my phone to call her. But I didn't need to call. There was already a message from Emily. "I'll head home by taxi and train. I saw the landlady early this morning. Dad, maybe you can try your luck. People are said to live for 100 years nowadays. It'd be lonely to live it alone from now on. If there's someone by your side, I'll feel relieved." It seemed like she had noticed my feelings for the landlady. More than that, the words that she spoke with the landlady prompted me to rush to see her. My daughter mentioned that she had a conversation with you. I hope she didn't say anything rude." The landlady laughed awkwardly and shook her head. "Not at all, she simply told me you seemed to be concerned about me." I scratched my head in embarrassment. "Is that so?" I hesitated about whether or not to express my true feelings. The landlady, I heard, was 55 but looked youthful and beautiful. I was a typical 60-year-old. Being a physical worker, my body might be sturdier than others of my age, but that's about it. It didn't seem to match. That thought crossed my mind. "Your daughter told me, my dad is lonely even though he doesn't show it much. If there's someone by his side, I'm sure the rest of his life would be more enjoyable." I could tell my daughter was trying to give me a push. If Emily is supporting me, I felt like I could take a step forward. I thought I was going to spend my old age alone, with loneliness and fear, but if there's someone I can share and overcome that loneliness and fear, I'd like to be with them. After talking with you yesterday, I thought you could be that person. I feel the same way. The landlady's delicate hand overlapped with mine. I gripped her hand tightly. "We both have families to take care of, so let's be friends for now and see where our relationship leads us." Yes, we'll start from that. That's how our friendship started. Since she lived in a neighboring town and I was retired already, I could see her frequently. After a while, the landlady retired from being an innkeeper and left the hot spring inn to her son and daughter-in-law. Now, I call her by her first name, Emma. We couldn't put a break on our growing love and weren't satisfied with just being friends. We talked to each other's children and started dating. We were 60 and 55 years old. Our relationship was slow and steady. Then, on her 56th birthday, I suggested that we live together. I also wanted to do that. I got such a response from her, so we started living together. Just having Emma in my house made my life brighten up instantly. But honestly, at this age, I thought it was okay not to marry her. But the one who gave me a push was my daughter, Emily. It's exactly because of your age. If something happens to you, if you're married, there are things you can leave behind, right? And do you want only me to be by your side at your last moment? Hearing that, I made up my mind. I realized that was indeed the case. We've both experienced a heartbreaking parting with our first partners. And there's no doubt that because I was her husband and a part of her family, I was able to be there for Alice in her last moments. If the last day comes, I want Emma to be there by my side. And also, I want to be the one by Emma's side when her time comes. After many discussions with our family and Emma, we decided to get married. Now, we live together. Our children have given their blessings. We regularly gather as a family for dinner, with my daughter Emily and Emma's son and his wife. Our family has grown, making our life more vibrant than we could have ever imagined. In our living room, we have photos of my late wife Alice and Emma's late husband. For both of us, they are irreplaceable. And our feelings for them will never change. We both want to cherish such emotions of one another and spend each day with care and kindness. I hope you enjoyed our story. Your subscription would really motivate us to continue producing content.